Imagine a continental collision 50 million years ago that was just so incredibly violent, it literally birthed a vertically stacked nation. Welcome to our latest explainer where we're looking at Nepal. We are talking about a place of absolute mind-bending extremes, where prehistoric giants still roam the grasslands, isolated villages cling to sheer cliffs, and the highest point on Earth literally touches the very edge of space.
To really wrap our heads around a country built on these impossible extremes, we are going to take a journey from the literal top of the world all the way down to its steaming plains. So our descent plan looks like this. We'll start up at the edge of space, explore life in thin air, dive into the chaos and sacred resilience of the cities, drop into the deep green plains, and finally visit the ground zero of Buddhism.
All right, part one, the edge of space. We're starting our descent right where the Earth curves, and the sky actually deepens to this rich black blue. This is the roof of the world, and it's home to 8 of the world's 10 tallest peaks.
29,032 feet. That is the staggering height of Mount Everest. But beyond that massive number is a completely hostile realm. We're talking about bottomless crevasses, sudden avalanches that literally reshape the landscape in seconds, and the terrifyingly steep Lhotse face made of solid blue ice. One slip there, it's a 4,000-foot drop. Up here, every single breath you take feels borrowed.
And honestly, the mountain keeps what it claims, 1 life lost for every 100 who reach the top. It's a harrowing reality. Along the route, you have Rainbow Valley, which, despite the name, is actually marked by the brightly colored gear of fallen climbers. And then at Thukla Pass, there are these silent stone cairns standing in rows, each one marking someone who just never returned. Survival up here is absolutely never guaranteed.
Moving on to part 2, life in thin air. Descending just slightly from those absolute peaks, we enter the realm of the Annapurna Circuit. And get this, the air up here only provides about half the oxygen your body actually needs to function normally.
But despite that, the biological and human endurance you see here is just incredible. The Sherpa people have turned survival into an absolute art form. They're masters at reading weather patterns in the clouds and navigating shifting ice to keep expeditions safe. Alongside them, you've got yaks. These guys are basically walking wool factories. They weigh as much as small trucks, but perfectly navigate the ice with their broad hoofs. And amazingly, evolution even carved out a niche for the red panda to just gracefully thrive in high-altitude bamboo forests where most creatures would, well, probably pass out.
And human settlement here is just wild. It cascades down the mountainside in places where physics barely even allows it. Just think about these altitudes for a second. You have communities literally clinging to life, from Dingboche's barley fields at almost 14,500 feet, all the way down to Tengboche's monasteries that sit right in Everest's massive shadow. Further down, around 11,000 feet, Namche Bazaar is built like this huge amphitheater, complete with blue-painted stone houses and a bronze statue of Tenzing Norgay, just gazing eternally at the peak he conquered. But then you run into absolute mysteries, like the high desert of Upper Mustang, passing by these ancient, delicate vertical apartments that are carved directly into sheer sandstone and limestone cliffs. It really leaves you wondering, who actually had the skill to hollow out these chambers, and how on earth do they withstand the stripping, violent winds up there? The mountains guard their secrets in total silence, that's for sure. Okay, part 3. Chaos and sacred resilience. Leaving the high mountains behind, we drop into the Kathmandu Valley. Now, this is a fragile civilization that kind of functions as a beautiful accident, constantly learning to breathe and rebuild amid violent seismic shaking. To truly grasp the vibe of this valley, just look at the story of the Dharahara Tower. It was originally finished about 150 years ago and stood as this proud historic monument. Then, in April 2015, a devastating 7.8 magnitude earthquake reduced the whole thing to rubble in a matter of seconds. But today, it's already been rebuilt, and it stands even taller than before. It's essentially a white lighthouse of endurance in the city that literally dances with destruction. And then there's this. Wait, what? Yeah, Nepal literally exists in its own temporal dimension. They follow the Bikram Sambat calendar, which actually places the entire nation 57 years into the future compared to the Gregorian calendar the rest of the world uses. It kind of perfectly mirrors how time layers itself over there, you know? Ancient stone temples and people on modern smartphones just existing beautifully, side by side.
And that uniqueness extends right down to their national symbol. Nepal is the only country on Earth with a flag that completely refuses to be a rectangle.
Shaped like two stacked triangles, it beautifully symbolizes the peaks of the Himalayas, but even more importantly, it represents the peaceful, long-standing coexistence of the country's two major faiths, Hinduism and Buddhism.
You really feel those faiths everywhere you go. Whether you're at the Swayambhunath Monkey Temple or the massive Bodhanath Stupa, devotion here becomes almost mechanical. Pilgrims walk in this endless clockwise procession, giving those copper mantra cylinders a gentle push. And since each cylinder is filled with thousands of written mantras, every single spin is believed to be the equivalent of speaking every prayer inside. It's like faith is just set spinning by human touch, accumulating merit and purifying karma right out there in the open air.
Section 4. The Deep Green Plains. Pushing further south via the new 71-kilometer Kathmandu-Terai Expressway, which is this crazy concrete lifeline they're blasting through the mountains, the Himalayas suddenly just surrender. They give way to the steaming, dense jungles of the Indian subcontinent.
Welcome to Chitwan National Park. The numbers here represent one of the absolute greatest conservation comebacks on the planet. Back in the late 20th century, the one-horned rhinoceros was hunted almost to extinction. We're talking double digits left. But today, over 600 of these prehistoric-looking giants roam the grasslands. Plus, this park holds one of the highest densities of Royal Bengal tigers on Earth, along with ancient gharial crocodiles that were also brought back from the brink.
Now, this profound respect for sacred life is actually baked straight into the law. For example, killing a cow carries a 12-year prison sentence. But as you can imagine, this creates some intense, real-world tension. Locals living right on the edge of the park have to somehow figure out how to coexist with massive elephants and rhinos that regularly come out to raid their crops and destroy their livelihoods. It's a really complex balancing act between ancient reverence and everyday modern survival.
Moving on to Part 5, Ground Zero of Buddhism. Deep down in these fertile plains, we find Lumbini. Now, this isn't just a town. It's an entire landscape transformed into a living map of Buddhist devotion, all rooted in an event that took place over 2.5 millennia ago. We are talking about the exact birthplace of the Buddha, surrounding the Mayadevi Temple, which is built right over ruins from the 6th century BCE, and Emperor Ashoka's 2,200-year-old sandstone pillar. Something truly incredible happened. With the eternal peace flame burning, the single sacred space inspired nations globally. I mean, from Myanmar to Sri Lanka and beyond, countries have built these spectacular temples side by side. This is where the most powerful person in history gave up all his power for compassion. It is, quite literally, the ground zero of Buddhism. All right, our final section, the mid-hills and the nation's core. If we move slightly back up from the plains, we enter the mid-hills. In places like Pohara and Gorkha, you see traditional terrace farming colliding with modern extreme sports. You literally have mules carrying medicine across terrifying swaying rope bridges, right alongside paragliders catching thermals above these pristine, mirror-like lakes. And that contrast brings us right to the core identity of the nation itself. Nepal is actually the oldest country in South Asia, and famously, it has a history of never falling under foreign occupation. Think about how wild this is. There are over 120 different languages spoken across dozens of ethnic groups, all sharing the exact same mountain paths. Sure, they are navigating the growing pains of a young, sometimes fragile democracy, but Nepal's true, undeniable strength is a staggering diversity that just absolutely refuses to be divided. So, from the breathless edge of space, through shaking valleys, and down to the steaming jungles, this explainer really proves something profound. When humanity is tested by the most impossible geography on Earth, it doesn't just survive. It adapts, it builds, and it fiercely endures. So as we wrap things up today, I want to leave you with this thought. If life and culture can absolutely thrive at the edge of the impossible, what boundaries are we needlessly creating for ourselves? Something to think about. Thanks for exploring with us, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.